What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Early Edge NFL Kickoff Show, brought to you by BetMGM, the sportsbook born in Vegas. Will Brinson here, along with Danny Brasco and Sia Nejad. What's up, fellas? Three-man weave. Feels a little easier to say what's up and not have to worry about four people answering simultaneously. You know what I mean?
Well, we're going to have Proppy joining us in 2 to 3 minutes. So you're still going to have to do the delegating. But yeah, I'll speak first, Danny. I'm so excited. It's not just because my Commanders are playing tonight and they'll probably, my thought is they get taken care of pretty easy. I obviously hope I'm wrong, but I just think there's a lot of meat on the bone with both of these games. Maybe it's just me being excited after a singular good weekend, coming off a bad weekend the weekend before. But I'm feeling it right now. So let's see how it ends up.
By singular good weekend, you mean you got hot?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I think I've hit 7 out of my last 8 bets for SportsLine, which is, pretty great. The one I lost was the 49ers blowing that lead. I had them -7. And so felt like I could have easily gone 8 for the last 8, but I didn't. So here we are.
Danny, Mr. Primetime Under.
I mean, let's keep cooking, man. I don't want to jinx stuff, so I won't say what the role I'm on is, but go ahead and take a look at the SportsLine picks I've got up right now. We're cooking with gas, and I love the primetime matchups. I totally agree with Sia. A lot of meat on the bone here, prop-wise. Me and Sia are firing off. You're going to see a lot of picks on the recap screen. I think that we should attack the board tonight, fellas.
Well, it's really interesting. So, and this is kind of not inside baseball, but it's when ESPN and ABC re-upped in the most recent deal, they spent even more money because they wanted to get that ABC Super Bowl. They want to have Buck and Aikman calling it. And they want the way it works is, you notice when Fox had that little run on Thursday nights or whatever, Fox had a run on Thursday nights, the games were terrible. Mm-hmm. And Fox had paid decent money. We had some games too. CBS had some games too on Thursday night. Well, Amazon spent so much money. They're like, here's some good games. Same deal tonight. You're getting the Bengals, the Commanders with the number 2, Commanders are Commanders, but they have the number 2 overall draft pick. And then Trevor Lawrence against Josh Allen. And then we had on Sunday, Chiefs and Falcons. That's why that main slate was kind of it was fun. It was a great Sunday of football. Don't get me wrong, but they put a lot of these teams, you Jets, a lot of teams in prime time this week. You see that early in the season, and oftentimes the NFL will acquiesce to the cash in order to make sure that the TV partners are happy with what they get. I think that I find it so fascinating how they do that. Anywho,
I will always laugh when we get a 9-6 Jeff Bezos Thursday Night Football. Haha, nice purchase, dude.
Well, I believe so. We do these shows. By the way, if you're watching on YouTube, smash the like button. If you're in the chat, we see if you've got a question about a particular player, leave it. We'll get to it. We're going to cover both games. 10 a.m. every day. Early Edge. Sia Nejad holding it down. Go check that out. You can subscribe via the podcast method. And then we do this show before every primetime game. Thursday, Cowboys-Giants. Now, it actually is kind of intriguing now because Daniel Jones looks good. Malik Neighbors might be a top 5 wide receiver in the NFL. And Mike McCarthy's seat is hotter than the surface of the sun right now. So that could be fun. But I believe the Monday night game, we get 2 Monday night games next week as well. This is what you're referencing here, Danny. Titans at Dolphins.
There we are. Skylar Thompson versus Will Levis.
Might be Tim Boyle against Will Levis, assuming Will Levis continues to start. If he had a life for every time Pete Prisco tweeted about him, he would be he would live for all of eternity. Then Seahawks Lions, though, that's a fun game on Monday night as well. Sunday night, Bills Ravens. So you can see they're early in the season, they are not afraid to toss these premier games in primetime slots, knowing that come Sunday when there's 15 games on, we don't care. We're going to watch it all anyway. Let's get to the first game up, and it's Jags at Bills. Bills are down to 4.5-point favorites with a total of 46.5. I believe matching totals for both of these games. But man, Doug Peterson, people are starting to ask questions. Rightfully so. Jags are 0-2. Bills are 2-0. And it is interesting, I think, Sia, to see this line movement back down towards the Jaguars as we get closer to kickoff.
Yeah, and it's not altogether surprising. I mean, like you said, this was touching +6, and it was +5.5 for a while, and now down to +4.5 across all books. I mean, this isn't just BetMGM. I think all the books are now kind of seeing this at +4.5, and so this is, I think, a product of maybe the initial line being an overreaction to what the Jaguars record is and how good the Bills are. Like, I'm still not sure how good the Bills are. I came into this season largely fading them from a win total standpoint. I'm not sure about their defense. It looks good so far. Now, granted, I don't know that Trevor Lawrence and company is going to test this defense like a high-powered offense would. But let's be honest about the Jaguars. They should have won week 1. They were blowing out the Dolphins, just like the Bills did last week. And just because of a crazy turnover and some crazy events immediately thereafter, they end up losing the game. So I think this Jaguars team is probably like this line probably should be like 3.5 or 4 and not 5.5, 6, or even 4.5. So I think people are realizing that dogs are very live, especially after the last couple of weeks. And the Jags maybe aren't as bad, particularly defensively, as people think.
Well, I should have just asked you what your pick was, but I'll do that now. What are you looking at for this game against the spread?
Yeah, I mean, I without actually giving the pick, I basically gave the pick. I've got the first half here, and the reason I'm taking the Jaguars first half +3.5 as opposed to the line, which I like the overall spread as well, especially if you got it at 5.5 or 6. I don't really trust Trevor Lawrence in general. I mean, I've made the entire Trevor Lawrence experience from Clemson on, I just didn't think this guy was generational at all. I don't think he's a very good quarterback. I don't think he's a top 15 quarterback in the league, and I don't trust him in the clutch. But I do trust this defense. I do trust the running game, and I do trust Trevor to be okay in the non-clutch moments. That brings me to the first half bet. Give me Jaguars first half +3.5.
I like that. Jeff in the chat says, if CBS really wanted to goose ratings, I think people would love to see Brasco at a Bills tailgate lighting himself on fire and jumping through a table. I don't think
if you dig back in my social media, I did lose a bet in which I took the Titans, or I took the Bills. My opposing foe took the Bills, and I had to jump through a table, Bills Mafia style. I went to Home Depot. I got a plastic table, and I went right through that thing. So the ratings are there, CBS. I'm ready to jump. Let's go.
I'm just glad we didn't have social media back when I was in college. I'll just put it that way.
Yeah.
Let's just put it that way. It's Wu-Tang Forever. Shout out Wu-Tang. Ever since then, Wu-Tang. It's raining tonight in Buffalo. I don't know that necessarily impacts how I feel about this game. I do think for this game, and this is why my pick is the under 46.5. Like, if you just look at what Joe Brady has done since he took over as OC for the Bills, it's a different offense. They're not trying to let Josh Allen wing it around. They want to pound the ball with James Cook. His usage is through the roof on the back end of last year. And of course, he had that 3-touchdown game in primetime. I don't know that Josh Allen is going to run as much. He didn't last week after injuring his hand. He had like a glove and fingers taped together. So I would be a little cautious with Allen, and I think they will. I think they would love to not worry about Josh Allen running if they can. And then on the Jaguar side of things, this play calling from Doug Peterson and Press Taylor is just bad. It's not. We saw it last year. Trevor, I disagree with Sia in the sense that I think Trevor Lawrence is a generational prospect. He hadn't shown it. He's flashed it. He's got the weapons, but they don't really want to, and I know Pete Prisco, I like to joke about it, but he covered the Jaguars for years and lived in Jacksonville forever, knows the team. They should come out slinging the ball. I don't trust them to do that. I think they'll probably try to come out and play defense and keep it close. And you could see a very sort of like from a boxing match perspective, kind of feeling each other out early on. First half under, maybe a decent look as well. So I'm taking the under here. I think we see more points in the other game. What do you have, Danny, from a game pick, Jags at Bills?
Welcome to the Unders Club. Well, welcome.
Good to be here.
I've been imploring everyone to join it, and it's been very profitable as of late. So we're going to stick to the script. And I'm also taking the under 46.5. To be frank, I did play this early, and on the SportsLine site, I have 45.5. So just want to be clear. If it lands on 46 in between the hook right there, you can throw tomatoes at me. But I did lose some closing line value there. I expected some sharp action to come towards the under, considering how heavily they've trended in primetime games towards the under. But, we could see some offense in this matchup. Although I agree, Joe Brady, a Joe Brady-led offense under his identity is going to be run first. And I think that that's going to sap the life out of this game. We could see more defense than you expect, grittier performance than Jacksonville. And it could be another rock fight here on a primetime game. However, I also really like the Jaguars, and that's probably my favorite play tonight. My play was +6. When they were +5.5, I recommended a little half point up just to get that push condition at -120. And I really like that. Now that line is kind of gone. That's the value of being on SportsLine, getting that early when the line was 5.5, and I could make that recommendation. If you're getting 4.5 now, so be it. I think the Jaguars is still the right side. And really because the narratives on these teams are a little bit skewed. I think we're getting a bit of an overreaction here, sort of like Sia alluded to. Because of that Travis Etienne goal line fumble, they lose that game to the Dolphins. And then a really close affair with the Browns, where the Browns went 3 for 3 on 4th downs and were really able to come up clutch to beat Trevor Lawrence. Perhaps he lacks that clutch ability, Sia, but I think he can at least cover this spread here against a Bills team that they've had success before. Recently, a 25-20 win for the Jaguars in London in their last meeting. And really, I think, Trevor Lawrence has shown some success with this offense. Despite only scoring 30 points through the first 2 weeks, they have hit 8 plays for 20-plus yards. So the explosives are there. And we know the Bills are still without slot corner Taron Johnson. He's so important for them. And now, Matt Milano, key linebacker, now without the signal caller, Terrell Bernard. At some point, you got to wonder when the injuries are going to catch up to the Bills. The 2-0 start is awesome for them, but I think the ball's bounced their way in a lot of spots. Don't forget, they barely escaped the Cardinals. And before, the 31-10 final score against the Dolphins, it was a close game before Tua got hurt, in which the Dolphins were turning the ball over left and right. So the Bills have been done some favors. The Jaguars have done no favors for themselves. And usually, when you meet those two things, I like to take the dog there in a misperception of narrative, so to speak. So give me the Jags plus the 6. And if you have 4.5 now, I would still take it. And I like a player prop to close out in this one, Brinson. I like James Cook over his receiving yards, over 17.5. There is no alpha wide receiver 1 in this Bills wide receiver corps, right? And I think one might not emerge throughout the whole season. Maybe Khalil Shakir, maybe Keon Coleman starts to step up, but they'll utilize James Cook, their running back, who's a very good pass catcher and a lot of different looks. And I think that Josh Allen will look at him tonight. He went well over this total in week 1. He went under by the hook in week 2, but largely got scripted out of the game after a 17-yard touchdown catch against the Dolphins. And in this week, I think they'll have to use him in the short game. So give me James Cook over his receiving yard total.
Yeah, the usage on Cook and really everybody with Buffalo in terms of the skill position guys is tough to gauge because they blew out Miami. Miami did nothing on offense. And then Tua got hurt, and they did less than nothing on offense as well. I'm on, from a player prop perspective, Khalil Shakir over longest reception, 20.5 yards. I think it's just a little low for him. They're not afraid to get him involved around the line of scrimmage. He great with yak, bust out something a little bit longer, maybe take a shot down the field. They have really good weapons. They've just kind of declined to use them. I think, Keon Coleman went 0 for last week. Dalton Kincaid has been a tough beat because he got the first 2 targets from Josh Allen and then took a hit to the head and was out for a little while and wasn't heavily involved. So I'm going Shakir over longest reception. Anything for you? See, I know we have one from Proppy, but I'm not sure. We can give it out and we'll wait and maybe filibuster a bit to see if he shows up.
Yeah, so
he has other duties. He's not late. He's doing 18 just for the record.
Fair enough. Yeah, no, I have 3 props for the next game, but I'll say this, and this came up in the morning show. First of all, there's questions in the chat about Trevor Lawrence's rushing yards. I do lean to I think it was Trevor Lawrence that there was a question about. I do lean to his rushing yards over, but more importantly, I lean to the passing attempts and pass completions under for Josh Allen. I do think, again, Joe Brady, I do think this is a running game on both sides. I think this may end up being a bit of a rock fight where the running backs are really, truly utilized on both sides of the ball. I think it was David Talk in our early edge chat this morning that brought up that play specifically on Josh Allen under completions and attempts. Normally, I have a take in terms of why I like I like attempts versus completions because I think the quarterback's going to be inefficient, or I think the quarterback's going to be really, really efficient. So I take the completions over, what have you. I don't have a take on this in terms of which one of these I like better, but I like both unders for Josh Allen. Again, that's completions and passing attempts. But again, those are not official plays for me.
Hey, worth noting, 34-28 win over the Cardinals in week 1. Josh Allen goes 18 of 23, 232 yards, 2 touchdowns. So, I mean, like really, really efficient stuff. Cook runs okay. Allen was being Superman in that game with his legs, 9 carries, 39 yards, 2 touchdowns. And then in week 2, when they blew out the Dolphins on a Thursday night, also worth noting, they have a ton of rest here for the Bills. Allen goes 13 of 19 for 139 and a touchdown. This is not I'm forgetting the old offensive coordinator they fired, Ken Dorsey. This is not Ken Dorsey's offense where Allen is throwing 40 times and they're coming out like Joe Brady is going to run the football. He's shown it. They're not trying to open it up. I think, and I had this take before the season last year, before Ken Dorsey got fired, that Sean McDermott was going to put his imprint on this offense. Sean McDermott is a defensive coordinator. He doesn't want to have this high flying, throw it all over the place. Like, let's take shots. And he's fine with methodical drives. He's fine with Josh Allen, not being, too aggressive in terms of number of pass attempts and completions. I think it's a really good look on both of those. We had the inactives for both teams in this game. Teron Johnson, Mike Edwards, Terrell Bernard that's a big one. Ryan Vandermark and Udefwan Ulofashoshi, which is a name I mispronounced. And we're going to move on to the Jaguars, who are missing Evan Ingram. You know what that means. Who's our guy? Everyone's
talking
playing.
about Brenton Strange.
And then Darnell Savage in the back end of note. Miles Cole also out. So, I mean, pretty healthy across the board, mostly defensive stuff. I guess I would worry you a little bit from the over perspective. But again, I think the way that these two offenses are going to operate, if the Bills come out and take shots down the field and be aggressive in the passing game early, it'll change all that. It'll force Jacksonville to do the same. I really don't think Buffalo will do that. If the first drive is Josh Allen dropping back 3 straight times and throwing to Kincaid and Shakir, not surprised at all. But I think once they settle in, they're going to want to run the football. And I think Jacksonville will sort of acquiesce to that in a sense, in terms of playing the same game that Buffalo wants to play.
And if you need one more reason to bet a primetime under, Trevor Lawrence at 32-22 for his career, 3rd most profitable QB to the under out of all active QBs. So Trevor Lawrence
shout out Urban Meyer and Doug Peterson.
Yeah, exactly.
Shout out to, by the way, this is sort of random. We'll just throw this out there, but I saw this and I've been meaning to write something about it. I'm going to wait till, I guess, this week and maybe write like sort of break down where Bill Belichick is likely to land next year. Jacksonville is a really interesting spot. They're 0-2. Let's say they lose this week. I don't think they'll fire Doug Peterson midseason, but Trent Baalke is a known, he likes to maneuver in terms of power plays. He's not afraid to shift the blame to his coach. You saw how it worked with Harbaugh in San Francisco. He has the ear of the Khan family, Shad Khan and Tony Khan, the father and son who basically run things there. If they thought, like, if Belichick believed that Trevor Lawrence is a really good quarterback or he's an undervalued quarterback and this roster's good and he can sort of have control and ownership won't be involved, like, Belichick to the Cowboys makes all the sense in the world, except Jerry Jones is notorious for meddling. And I don't know, man, Jacksonville kind of fits what Bill Belichick might want. And I think the amount of work that he's doing in the media makes it very clear he's coming back next year. Like, otherwise you just do one pregame show and go fishing and play golf. I mean, he is all over the place.
That makes me like Jacksonville even more, right? If the fire is hot under Doug Peterson right now, who, by the way, is 33-26 against the spread as an underdog. So he performs well as a dog, maybe back against the wall moment if he's feeling the pressure there from Bill Belichick potential.
Okay. We have the one, the only Alex Selznick, a.k.a. Propstarz, about to join us. Let's bring him in. He has a prop What's up, Proppy? He has a player prop that is so near and dear to my heart as someone who is holding a bunch of bags in best ball that are I thought were going to be full weeks into the season, and it turns out there may be holes in the bottom, and it's cash falling out left and right. I drafted. I think it's like my exposure is like 27% Josh Allen and like 35% Dalton Kincaid, Proppy. So speak to me, please.
I'm still incredibly bullish on Dalton Kincaid, gentlemen. Despite the slow start, I think last week we can chalk up to a low-volume passing game from Josh Allen. 19 passing attempts. 4 of those targets went to Josh Allen, so not a bad target share. I was especially encouraged considering all 4 of the targets came on either the first drive of the game or the first drive of the second half, where we know the plays are scripted. So clearly Buffalo's making a concerted effort to get Dalton Kincaid more involved. And I honestly believe he will ultimately end up as the leading receiver on this Buffalo offense. I love the way they deploy him. They use him as more of a big receiver than a tight end all over the formation. Honestly, I look at Dalton Kincaid, he just passes the eye test to me. He's just a natural route runner, understands how to get open. I really think this could be the only week of the season outside of these first 2 weeks where we see him sub 35 yards as far as his receiving number is concerned. So I'm still very bullish, very encouraged. I think the breakout happens tonight. I think this game does have sort of shootout potential, and I do think we'll see Dalton Kincaid more involved with Josh Allen, likely to throw the ball over 30-plus times.
I dig it. Somebody asked, Shakir is 21 and a half. Do I still like it? I mean, yeah, but his long reception in week 1, 19 yards, long reception in week 2, 21 yards. I have 20 and a half. Like I bet it at FanDuel earlier in the day. This is one of those where I think I like it, but I'm like hesitant to say you should bet that because if it's 21, then I feel like a real a-hole because I win and the listener doesn't. Any thoughts on that jump up of a yard, Shakir? I mean, it's these longest reception props are fickle beast. If you don't want to chase steam too much on that just because it's I mean, you got 3 old dudes who are marking stuff out there. Like you could get hosed any which way.
I mean, if you're scared of a yard, then you don't want to play it, is how I would say that.
Yeah,
I got to back up Proppy on his take, though. I mean, this has to be the bottom of the market on Kincaid. 34 and a half. And if he doesn't surpass that, it's not going to drop much further than that. You're not going to see him in the 20s. I mean, all he needs is 4 targets to potentially hit that. So I like that take here, Proppy.
All right, let's rip through some. Jump on in with your thoughts on any of these. We've got Trevor Lawrence, 32 and a half pass attempts.
Yeah, I like the over there. I think, if I'm not mistaken, Jacksonville ran the fewest plays in the league over the first 2 weeks of the season. So even if we see them end up league average as far as the play calling or the plays amount is concerned, definitely I think a good chance he goes over. Buffalo certainly invites somewhat of a higher scoring game environment as well. Also, I don't think Buffalo runs a lot of clock themselves. I think teams typically average above average plays against Buffalo. So I think everything kind of leaning towards Jacksonville having more plays and that obviously having a trickle down effect with more Trevor Lawrence dropbacks as well. So I like that quite a bit.
And this sort of dovetails with it, right? Travis Etienne, rush attempts 13. The one reason I think you could be bullish on the over here is Tank Bigsby banged up. So maybe Etienne gets a higher workload to, 0-2 must-win game. But, Doug Peterson said before the season they were going to try to lighten his workload. He got 13 against the Browns, 12 the week before. So that's a pretty thin number probably.
Yeah, I would just add to that he really 12 of his last 14 games has been held under 60 yards. And that was after he got off to that great start last season. Really, just as the season prolonged, just ran out of gas, looked inefficient. So I think that was a big reason why Doug Peterson mentioned kind of, lightening his workload, especially early in the season, considering how inefficient he's been. So hard to have a lot of confidence right now. They're also not opening up a lot of holes for him. As you mentioned, Bigsby has been more effective, or as equally effective at least, when he's been on the field this season. So I'd lean over with ETM, but I just don't think that's necessarily how they're going to choose to attack Buffalo.
Okay. We'll circle back. We got to get to the second game. Unless we'll do some quick hitters. Yeah, let's see. Josh Allen under 6.5 rushing attempts. Yeah, I really don't think they'll try and run him a ton. Like I think in a perfect world, if they get a lead, he won't run very much. It won't be designed. That's for sure. Interception. Genie spoke. Buckets went Trevor Law to throw an interception. Sure.
Trevor Lawrence to throw an interception. And he's hit 10 out of his last 11 somehow. So do what you will with that.
It's ridiculous.
Let me add, to me, if you're going to take a passing prop, because I know the Trevor Lawrence one came up, between Trevor Lawrence and Josh Allen, especially if you think the game script is it's going to be close and or the Bills will be playing with the lead, I think the Josh Allen pass attempts under is the way to go. If I had to choose among the two quarterbacks, that's the one I would choose.
I'm with you there. We've all had our first TD bet called back. It's the worst. And BetMGM is giving you a second chance. With BetMGM's Pro Football Second Chance, place any first touchdown score bet. And if your player doesn't score first, but does score second, get your entire stake back in cash. No opt-in required. Here's how it works. Place a pre-game straight first touchdown score bet in any NFL game. If your player scores the first touchdown of the game, win your wager is normal. If your player scores the second touchdown of the game, you'll get your stake back in cash. It's that simple. Log in to BetMGM for more details. Let's get to our first score picks. Proppy, you and I are the same guy. Pack your bags. Who you got?
I'm going Dalton Kincaid. I do want to take a victory lap here, Brinson, because this is my first appearance since nailing Alan Lazard. So happy to get the first gem under my belt, but I went right back to the chalk with Dalton Kincaid. I love him tonight. I think this is a great spot to back him. I think that Josh Allen is going to look to him. Love the fact that he was involved when the plays were designed in that last game. I think we see Josh Allen throw the football more than 19 times tonight as well. So I'm all over Dalton Kincaid. I'm going to go with him as my first touchdown scorer.
All right, Danny. You're going with the guy I have drafted in the first round of my dynasty league. I mean, this rookie wide receiver class is ridiculous, by the way.
It really is. So initially I wanted to go with Brenton Strange, who people are talking about in the chat. Over the weekend, I went to a restaurant I really like, and it was sitting next to me, but David Harbour from Stranger Things. So vibes are telling me Brenton Strange, but the game and the X's and O's are telling me Brian Thomas is ready to find pay dirt. He's been hitting some explosives with Trevor Lawrence, had some connections. Don't forget, he almost hit a big touchdown that Jalen Ramsey just tackled him for and stopped with a PI. So Brian Thomas has explosive potential, and I think we might see it in prime time here. Give me B-Tom. I don't think anyone calls him that, though.
BTJ, I think, is the B-Tom. Sia, you've got a Jaguars pass catcher as well.
Yeah, I'm trying to come up with a clever nickname for C. Kirk, Captain Kirk, if you will. Christian Kirk. We've forgotten about Christian Kirk, right? Because we're through 2 games and we think we have everything figured out. It's Gabe Davis, it's Brian Thomas, it's Brenton Strange. Christian Kirk hasn't done anything. Same narrative for Amari Cooper through 2 weeks and what happened with him just yesterday. I think Christian Kirk, now granted, this is the underdog, so you're going to get longer odds, which I do like. I think we're going to find out that Christian Kirk is firmly a part of this game plan this week. I think he's going to be involved to the extent that they're passing. The Jacksonville Jaguars are passing. I think Kirk is going to be one of the higher target shares. It's hard to figure out because they do have a lot of pieces to pass to. I think Christian Kirk scores the first touchdown, though.
All right. Look, I think it's one of those where you get a big dog. That's where you get the pass catchers over that number. And with no Tank Bigsby, maybe they're more, not no Tank Bigsby, but less Tank Bigsby. Maybe they're more inclined to throw short passes. What is Lawrence, by the way? I don't hate it. If Lawrence is above 20-1, I don't hate that either, but we'll get to it later. Okay. Second game of the night. I used to hate 2 Monday Night Football games because they would do one at like 10 p.m. Eastern time. It was just brutal to podcast after, but now I like the doubleheader. 2 TVs set up in my living room. What a life. Bengals -7.5. Everyone survivor riding on them. A total at 46 now. Danny, what do you like in this game?
So I'm going to say something first that I don't like, and that's the under. It's a primetime under that I don't like. You're not going to find too many of them, but I told you guys I'd be betting one unit on every single primetime under throughout the season, and I'm very confident at the end we'll be significantly up. This is one that I'm going to go ahead and pass on because I see offense. Sia is going to talk about his Commanders secondary, but oh boy, are they atrocious. Swiss cheese back there. And we saw Burrow and the Bengals start to connect late against Kansas City. I think they roll that momentum and start to show out on offense here. However, I'm not laying 7.5. Dogs have 6 or more so far through the first 3 weeks, 11-1 against the spread. So I think a lot of people have picked up on that trend and are going to jump on Commanders. I'm not brave enough to do that either. I could see them getting steamrolled. So nothing's speaking to me on the total or the spread. I'm going to pick a prop, and I guess we'll circle back later on to that when we talk about player props. But passes for me on the spread in total. I do see an offensive game where Jaden Daniels could succeed and Joe Burrow could go off as well.
Yeah, see, this Commanders defense. Now, look, I think Dan Quinn's a really good defensive coordinator or a really good defensive coach. You see what's happening with the Cowboys right now. He just doesn't have the bodies in Washington, and they are as bad as it gets against the pass in the NFL.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, you can be a great defensive coordinator, and that will help even with a bad, let's say back seven, because their front four is pretty solid still. But I think it's too much. Like, I don't have an official play on the spread, but I fully anticipate the Bengals. I think they end up pulling away with this one. What's interesting is I don't know what to take from the Giants game because Washington did drive the ball down the field pretty easily and just had to settle for field goals. Clearly, you're not going to be able to settle for field goals at Cincinnati, a team that just almost knocked off the Chiefs in KC. But I also question whether or not they're going to be able to sustain those long sustained drives like they did against the Giants. Here's the thing. The Bengals defense isn't very good. But speaking of coordinators, Lou Anarumo is pretty good. And he gets a rookie quarterback that seems to be, at least right now, seems to be a little tentative in terms of just getting the ball out and trusting his read. I think Jaden Daniels is great. I think he's going to be the rookie of the year. I think by far, in my opinion, he was the best rookie coming out over Caleb Williams and everybody else. But with all that said, it's game 3 for him, and it's Lou Anarumo at home on the other side. It's just not a good scene. I think the Bengals end up covering this one.
Yeah, I got the Bengals as for my bet at -7.5. It's wild. The Bengals are 1-9, excuse me, in weeks 1 and 2, straight up with Joe Burrow as their quarterback since they drafted him. 1-9. They've won one game in the first 2 weeks with Joe Burrow. Week 3, they're 3-0-1. They had a tie. Yes, I do. You saw it. They get kind of desperate. They change up their game plan a little bit. I think, T. Higgins is back for this game, which I don't want to accuse T. Higgins of not actually being injured, but I do think that, it's like, all right, we get the worst pass defense in football. Me and Jamar are both playing for contracts. Joe needs a win, and we can sling it all over the place. I think the Bengals come out firing. The only concern I have for the over here, because I like it, I think both teams score. I think we see points. And the Bengals defense is not very good, is that if the Bengals get like a 17 to 20 point lead, it would not shock me at all if they decided to just feed Zach Moss the rock. And then you're sort of relying on Washington's pass catchers and that Washington offense to get you there. Proppy, what do you have?
I like the over here as well as Danny. I think this is a lot of signs pointing towards the over here. First and foremost, Cincinnati's offense getting a big boost with T. Higgins back in the fold. I still think the Cincinnati offense is going to lead the NFL in dropbacks this season. So I look at this as a matchup that is very exploitable against a historically bad Washington secondary without their first-round pick from last year and Emmanuel Forbes as well. I just think Joe Burrow can pick apart this Washington secondary. Higgins back. Jamar Chase is yet to eclipse triple digits. I love the addition of Jermaine Burton as well, the rookie wide receiver from Alabama. He's played minimal snaps. When he's on the field, he's made a huge impact. Saw that in the preseason as well. Had the big explosive 47-yard reception last week as well. I think his playing time is going to rise. I think it's going to result in less double teams for Jamar Chase. I think Mike Gesicki adds a little bit of an aerial threat at the tight end position that they've been missing as well in Cincinnati. So I think we're going to see Joe Burrow absolutely carve up Washington. Then as far as Washington's offense is concerned, this Cincinnati defense is banged up. Sheldon Rankins doubtful. B.J. Hill, arguably their best defender, out for this game here as well. We know Cliff Kingsbury runs as many plays in a neutral game environment as any play caller in the NFL. So I think we're going to see a healthy amount of plays from the Washington offense here. So I think we're going to see, easily at least like a 27-20 matchup. So I think over 46.5 is a very good look here. Typically don't bet a lot of overs on totals, but this is one that I absolutely love.
Let's take a look at the inactives for this game. I believe we have them. Lovely. Look at Jake smashing it. Trent Irwin out for the Bengals. Tanner Hudson also out. My boy BJ Hill not playing. Sheldon Rankins not playing. Ooh, that is, if you like Brian Robinson to do anything, he doesn't have to deal with as many bodies in the middle. On the other side, no Sam Hartman. Not a huge shock there. Chris Paul. Wow. Can't win an NBA title and can't make the Monday night game either. Sucks to suck, Chris Paul. Emmanuel Forbes also out. That's a Chris Paul punched Julius Hodge in the nuts joke that nobody got. Anywho, we have anytime touchdowns from the model as well. We'll fire those up. So we have from the first game, James Cook, -125, SportsLine model, of course. Josh Allen, they actually have Josh Allen at -200 in terms of like what they make it. You can get him for -120. And then Travis Etienne at -100. That's from the first game, of course. Do we have the anytime touchdowns for the second game? I'm putting Jake on the spot here. My apologies.
I will say when that injury report came out, there was one name that I've been refreshing to see if he's going to be playing, and that's Von Bell, safety for the Cincinnati Bengals. We talk about all their injuries. They've been very weak against the run. So if there's a world where the Commanders keep it close, it's just feeding Brian Robinson and punching them in the mouth and trying to expose them without Sheldon Rankins and DJ Hill and the interior there. But if Von Bell is there with Lou Anarumo, who Sia alluded to, great game planner. I think having that safety piece can help step up and run stop a little bit and prevent big plays if they run a lot of screen action like they try to get with Daniels, a short A-dot stuff. I think Von Bell is an important piece to the defense for Lou Anarumo. So he looks to be playing. I think that spells good things for the Bengals.
Okay, let's get to some player props in this one. Sia, my eyes lit up when I saw yours. I had like already laddered this player, an underrated deep threat for the Washington Commanders. When I saw your bet, made me happy to see it.
Very underrated deep threat, just a threat in general. So this is the one play, like all these plays are on SportsLine, become a member, obviously, but two of these three that I'm about to give out, I gave out on the early edge this morning. It's the Cincinnati Bengal ones, which I'll touch on again in a second. But Noah Brown over 16.5 receiving yards. I put that out this morning. I think it was 15.5, and I was a minute late to it, and it was 16.5 when I got it. Now it's up to 18.5 in a lot of places. Just so everybody knows, I still like it at 18.5. And I've laddered this. And Will, I know you're going to speak to this too. I think most of the people on this show have laddered the Noah Brown props because we don't actually know who the wide receiver 2 is for the Washington Commanders. I mean, that's the thing. The reason we don't know that it's Noah Brown is because he was inactive week 1 because they had just picked him up. And then week 2, he was only on the field for like 30% of the snaps. But it was very clear that when he was in the game, he was the Noah Brown that we remember from the Houston Texans, the Noah Brown that we remember from the Dallas Cowboys, who for whatever reason just can't stay on a team. But when you see him on the field, he catches everything that's thrown to him. And for whatever reason, even though he's pretty slow, he's a yak monster. And so I think this Noah Brown prop, while it's speculative because he hasn't seen a lot of the field, I think we're going to see him assume the role of wide receiver 2 sooner rather than later. Absolutely love the over 16.5. Love the over 18.5. Love the laddering 25 plus, 40 plus, and 50 plus. If you want to go beyond that, be my guest. You know how laddering works. You take your unit size down, the higher you go up on the ladder. And I'll just touch real quick on the rushing props. I think the Bengals are going to have control of this game. I think the snap share between Zach Moss and Chase Brown is actually going to be closer this game than it has been week 1 and week 2, which means I think they can both get there with the rushing totals. Zach Moss over 51.5 rushing yards and Chase Brown over 24.5 rushing yards. Those are my 2 plays for the Bengals running backs.
I love it. What you got, Danny?
And if they're in a leading game script, then they could just be feeding the rock to both guys. Sia, from your mouth to my fantasy team's ears, my dynasty league, is Chase Brown worth anything? I hope tonight he shows it, and we're cashing your prop. And my dynasty league has a prayer. I'm going with the prop for my one pick tonight. We're talking offense for the Bengals. Jamar Chase is going to find pay dirt tonight for the first time this season. First 2 weeks, he had pretty difficult cornerback matchups. And of course, the Bengals started very rusty. Brinson just talked about how historically slow they start in the first 2 weeks. Yeah, add to that he faced Patriots cornerback Christian Gonzalez, who looks to be emerging as a top-tier talent. And then Trenton McDuffie on the Chiefs, who is a Super Bowl caliber corner. So now he gets who on the Commanders? I honestly don't even know who's covering him. Whoever's covering him is going to get smoked. And I like that T. Higgins is back to take a little attention away, divvy it up a little bit. I think they make a point to feed the star receiver tonight, get some momentum going, get their first win of the season, and do it with their best players. So give me Jamar Chase at plus 115. I feel like that's value.
Yeah.
I dig it. Sorry if I'm looking down. It's because I'm panicking or I'm like trying to make sure I don't get like stuck in a situation where I'm like shoveling in these lineups. Although I do think stacking the late game feels like a little bit better if you end up in that situation from a DFS perspective.
Mhm.
Probably, what do you have?
I like Joe Burrow to go over 264.5 passing yards in this game. I really believe we're going to see Cincinnati's offense air it out in this matchup. Washington's secondary historically bad. We've been talking about it throughout the stream. Missing Emmanuel Forbes as well. Then I just look at this Cincinnati offense, getting T. Higgins back in the fold. Jermaine Burton is an ascending player. The rookie wide receiver from Alabama really adds an outside perimeter threat, extremely explosive down the field. Saw that 47-yard reception last week, playing minimal snaps. I think his role in the offense is going to continue to grow, and you just can't double team Jamar Chase, especially if T. Higgins is on the field, when you have someone as explosive as Jermaine Burton on the outside. I think Mike Gesicki even is an upgrade at tight end for what Cincinnati's had throughout Joe Burrow's tenure, really just platooning at the position or just using guys with really low ADOTs that aren't very explosive. So I look at this as just an opportunity to get Cincinnati's offense on track. So I love the matchup for Joe Burrow. I think he carves up the secondary. I think he eclipses 300 yards in the process. Speaking of laddering, he's a guy I like laddering quite a bit. Slightly concerned with the rain, but yeah, I don't look at that. As long as there's minimal wind, I think we're going to see Joe Burrow get surgical against this Washington secondary.
Agree completely.
And Proppy, great point about the weather. If you're betting totals, wind way more important than rain. Just because it's raining doesn't mean the game's going under. Wind is the key factor there. So I love that you made that distinction.
Yes, massive distinction. I mean, rain is rain. Like dudes play football in the rain all the time. All right, we got a Goose parlay, don't we?
We do indeed. Yeah, Goose has been cooking up this one. It expands both games here. Goose really wants to get in the win category here. So we're starting with the Jags and the Buffalo Bills. I like backup tight end Brenton Strange for a variety of reasons. First and foremost, Doug Peterson throws to the tight end more than any coach in NFL history, essentially, when we're talking about his offenses. We know Evan Ingram at 114 receptions last year, by far led all tight ends in receptions. Brenton Strange last week had 7 targets, had a big impact on the stat sheet. So 25 yards for him, the former second-round pick, filling in for Evan Ingram this year. I like him to get loose in the middle of the field against Buffalo, where they're a little bit vulnerable there. Then I'm going James Cook to eclipse 50 rushing yards. I love beating the James Cook drum. I think he's a very underrated running back. Finally had that big performance last week, 3 touchdowns on 12 touches. A bit of a coming out party for him this season. So I like him to go over 50 yards. And then the man of the hour, too sweet to be sour, Joe Burrow, 225 passing yards. I mentioned I love his prop over 260 yards. So we're taking a little alt line here. And then Brian Robinson Jr., who I think has an excellent matchup. We talked about no Sheldon Rankings and BJ Hill, their top 2 interior defenders as far as Cincinnati's front 7 is concerned. BJ Hill, arguably their best defender overall. So this is a good matchup for Brian Robinson Jr., who I perceive as one of the more underrated running backs in the NFL. I think he gets 15-plus carries in the process. I think he easily eclipses 40 yards rushing. Put it all together, plus 220 for the Goose, spanning 2 games.
Let's go, Goose. All right, let's get our first touchdown picks for this second game. You were on first, so I'm not going to steal the thunder here, Sia, but I will tell you this. In addition to laddering Noah Brown all the way up to 70 receiving yards, I have also placed an anytime touchdown bet, and a 2 touchdown bet. You get one early. It's like 80-1 for 2 touchdowns for Noah Brown. I mean, look, Cliff Kingsbury leaves Terry McLaurin on one side of the field, runs a horizontal raid. Noah Brown is a legitimate deep threat. Jaden Daniels has a cannon. If they're trailing and they got to chunk it, who knows? Maybe he gets one early. If he's first touchdown scorer and double touchdown scorers, then, I mean, like, don't come, like, I'll see you on Thursday night, maybe. Like, I might be live from Vegas on Thursday night if it's 2 touchdown scores. But why do you like him here, Sia?
So it's interesting about the 2 touchdown thing. I mean, obviously we're riding on speculation, our own speculation a little bit, but when you talk about the ability to score touchdowns, especially when you're talking about like your non-wide receiver ones, like being great at the point of catch, breaking tackles. He is the Isaiah Pacheco of wide receivers. He runs so hard. So if there was a, quote, no-name wide receiver 3-4 in other people's minds, that type of guy to score a first touchdown or multiple touchdowns, and I understand he might have 1 catch tonight. Like, I get it. Or maybe 0. Everything's in play. I think he's going to have a handful, 3 to 4 maybe. And I think of the first touchdowns very much in play because, yes, Zach Ertz is going to be that guy for Jaden Daniels. Yes, Brian Robinson might score a rushing touchdown. Yes, Terry McLaurin might make a comeback, regression to the mean a little bit for him. But I think Noah Brown is actually that new shiny object that just people aren't paying attention to.
I love it. Look, man, I mean, he's 40-1 in, we talk about it every show. You don't see guys who are going to be heavily involved in the offense potentially with that kind of number. And you get BetMGM, maybe he scores a second touchdown, you get your stake back. So don't worry about it. Danny, you got a tight end on the Cincy side.
I do. And I told you I was going to get pretty random with it. I'm going for shiny gems, not the most gems, but the shiniest gems. We both got 40-1 though. I kind of like your guys' point to that. Noah Brown might be more heavily featured in the offense on that side than Tanner Hudson will be in the Bengals offense, but you know how it goes. Primetime matchup, star receivers, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins on the field, Mike Gesicki, new explosive tight end. And who is it? His body double, Tanner Hudson, right? That's why I went for guys like Noah Gray on the Chiefs, the stunt double of Travis Kelce, right? I'm going to go for guys like this. So give me Tanner Hudson to randomly appear in the corner.
All right, Proppy, who you got?
Danny sticking with the New York themes, talking about James Harbor and then Hudson Valley as well, like it, Danny. But I'm going to go with T. Higgins. I went full chalk here, admittedly, 10-1 odds, looking to get that first gem. Shout out to producer Jake, who in real time added that gem to my name. Shout out to Jake there. Love that. I'm going to take a screenshot of that, boys, put that on the fridge. But yeah, we're just looking to collect as many gems as possible. Went for the chalkiest play. We're talking T. Higgins, big body, alpha, wide receiver 1, playing for a new contract, has great chemistry with Joe Cool, likes to look his way in the end zone as well, especially when Jamar Chase commands the amount of attention he does. So give me T. Higgins to get loose for the first touchdown.
All right, let's get to our recap of all the best bets.
Brinson, before you do, I think someone said Tanner Hudson is out.
Did we have? I was reading it.
And it's from someone named Tanner, so it might be Tanner Hudson himself. Guys, I'm watching the show. I'm not playing tonight. My other pick is Trenton Irwin, 25.
I was like,
no way.
I was like, did I see him on inactive? So I was like, I don't want to call out Danny. Like, we'll just move right along.
Trent Irwin's definitely out. Trent Irwin's definitely out.
Well, here's the good news.
Mike Gesicki.
You would get a refund from it. So, and this is the second game. We start a live show at 6:30. So like the inactives came out midway. So you put, just to pull back the curtain a little bit, you put that in beforehand, thinking 40-1 great value. He is out. Mike
Gesicki. Yeah, 14-1.
Way to pivot. Good job, everybody.
There we go.
It would be the first push of a first touchdown scorer ever. I think you should keep it. But all right.
Yeah. I was about to say, I think Tanner Hudson is out, and I was like, I could just be dead ass wrong. I mean, I look like an idiot. Like, I was just gonna let this fly. All right, I'm gonna rip through these. We have picks from the show earlier. Make sure and tune in 10 a.m. every day on the SportsLine channel. We'll have best bets 2 p.m. It might be earlier this week because of Champions League, but also every primetime game We give out all these picks. This is a ton of them. Hold your breath, Brinson. Jags and Bills under for me. Khalil Shakir over longest reception, 20.5. Bengals -7.5. Proppy's got Dalton Kincaid over 34.5 receiving yards in the Commanders-Bengals over. Mike McClure, captain first quarter, has Bills first quarter -0.5. Larry Hartstein has Balin Spector over 7.5 tackles and assists. At 100, I thought I was reading a WWE like prop bet. I was like, sure, that tracks. I was like, who the hell is he? A receiver? I was like, I didn't see tackles. I saw the name. Sia has Jaguars first half +3.5. Noah Brown over 16.5 receiving yards. I should also note I have like everything Noah Brown. If he has a big game, we're dance partying. Sia also has Chase Brown over 24.5 rushing yards and Zach Moss over 51.5 rushing yards. Danny's on Jaguars +6, Jags-Bills under 46.5, James Cook over 17.5 receiving yards, and Jamar Chase anytime touchdown. All right. That's a lot of bets. That's 2 games. Ton of fun scheduled for Monday night. This show will be back Thursday. See you 10 a.m. tomorrow, right?
Yep, absolutely.
Subscribe, rate, rate and review. Make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel as well. Smash the like button. For Sia, for Proppy, for Danny, I'm Brinson. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. We'll see you guys later.